Thanks a lot, Adrian, and thanks for the opportunity to present today, and thank you for all of you as attendees for attending today's session. So, as Adrian said, we're looking at how to choose and implement your new LMS, or potentially, changing your learning management system. We've got a lot to go through, so in some cases I'll skip through the slides, but we're here. Don't hesitate to ask any questions in the chat function, and obviously afterwards we'll make ourselves available as well. But I'm Thomas Schilling. I am Managing Director of Together People. We focus on the broad range of HR systems, anything from core HR systems through to learning management systems, payroll, time and attendance and the like. And I'm going to be ably assisted today by Kate Ramelow, who is our digital learning specialist, and you'll see as we go through today's session that she knows her stuff. So welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Thomas.
As Adrian has said, everybody will be on mute. The session's being recorded for anybody who'd like to have a look at it at a later date. Please, we want to try and make this as interactive as possible. Hence, we've got polls, we've got the ability for you to add any questions that you might have all the way through, and we'll answer those towards the end. So just to highlight the key things that we want to get out of today's session, what are the features and functionality that you would typically be looking for in a learning management system? We want to look at the types of things that you want to focus on to make sure that your learning experience, your digital learning experience, is exceptional and effective. And then we've got some top tips, which we will be sharing with you at the end of the session as well. So Adrian, if you wouldn't mind looking at launching our first poll for us, which in this case is a question around what best describes your current learning management position. So we've got a
Okay, there you go.
Fabulous. Thank you. So we've got 4 options here. I'm currently just looking at the options. Second one is I'm actively looking for a learning management system. I have a learning management solution that meets our needs, or I have a learning management system that requires integrations, or you can also add there, I need content and the like. So I'll do the same as what Adrian did. Countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to share those results, guys?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Can you see them your side, Thomas, or do you need me to read them to you?
Oh, I can see them on my side. Thank you.
Okay.
Assuming everybody can still see the poll question, poll 1 on the screen. So effectively, the top answer was, I'm currently just looking at options. And the second was, I'm actively looking for a new LMS, which is really very close to sort of the results of a recent CIPD survey, which was run in May of this year. Even though budgets for learning, digital learning in general, are significantly down on the previous year, headcount is significantly down, but the uptake of digital learning and on technology is significant. So digital learning has increased to 70% for all the companies that were polled, and technology has jumped from, in terms of use, from 24% to 51% earlier this year. So technology in terms of learning has clearly increased significantly over the recent past, which is probably brings us to the reason why we're all here today. And I'm going to hand over to Kate, who's going to start talking first of all through features and functionality. Kate?
Thank you, Thomas. So, what features and functionality should you be looking for when selecting a new LMS? The first thing we have here is white labeling. So when you're choosing an LMS, it is important to select one which can be themed in such a way that it will reflect your company's corporate identity, rather than saying, here's a course on a generic platform. So your employees and customers need to know they're in the right place, and branding is an important part of that. So key questions you might ask when choosing an LMS would be, Can you include your logo, your fonts, your colors? Can you use your own imagery? Can you multi-brand the site? So can you have a number of brands that are different depending on where the person's coming from? And can you choose to include your own domain name in the URL for the site? At the very least, you should be able to answer yes to all of those questions. Then the next thing that, of course, is the main point of an LMS is content management. So someone's going to be coming to the LMS to do training and to look at course content. And how are you going to store, manage, and use this content, along with what content you can use? This is a key consideration when choosing an LMS. And there are a few standards which any LMS should have. So e-learning could mean anything from reading text or a document on the LMS, viewing a presentation, watching a video, linking to an external location like your intranet or YouTube even, or a reference site, all the way through to formative and summative assessments and assignments. So any trainer or administrator in the company should be able to upload any existing content or new content created in any of these formats, and that should be easy. It is important as well, of course, I'm sure a few of you have heard of SCORM content, and this is a minimum requirement. So where you want to be able to buy in content from other providers, then SCORM is an important thing to have on an LMS, as well as newer standards like XAPI, which is otherwise known as Tin Can, and CMI5, so that you know that even if you don't need them yet, they're going to be available in the future. And it's important to arrange the courses that you create into learning paths to match your needs, and you need to be sure that your LMS can do that. The next thing I'd like to talk about is mobile learning. So an LMS should be able to support mobile learning, of course, and it should do so seamlessly. So no matter what device your user is going to be accessing the LMS from, they should be able to continue their training. They shouldn't feel at a disadvantage when doing their training on a small mobile device, especially if they don't work primarily at a desk. So there are two key things that an LMS will need to support mobile learning. Firstly, it will need to be responsive. So that means that the site will resize depending on whether you're on a large screen like a PC or a small screen on a smartphone. The other thing that is very useful is to have a mobile app. So something that's going to support Android, iOS, your major platforms. And the idea of having an app, in addition to having responsiveness, is you get a more stable small screen experience. And this also allows potentially an option for offline viewing, and also for completion of courses with minimal fuss. If someone's working in poor connectivity areas, then they need to know that they can just do their training. Another very important thing, which I'm sure is significant to all of you, is reporting and tracking on the LMS. So the LMS that you choose has to have the reporting and progress tracking that you require. Any LMS worth its salt should have a wide range of standard reports. So that's user reports, course reports, test reports, survey reports, all the activity that's happening on the system. And these reports should contain all of the user and course data that you require in your context as well. So if you have very specific information that you need against particular users, then you need to know that that information is shown in the reports. You also need to be able to filter the reports and to be able to export them into perhaps CSV or Excel format so that you can use the data elsewhere if necessary. So it's handy to find a system that will allow you to do this and also to schedule reports. So if you want to be able to set up a standard report that's going to be mailed to the right person at the right time, then you actually, you need to be able to do that. And the idea there is that you don't need a manual intervention. You could have a weekly report that goes to a particular manager or a particular person in a process, and they'll always have that information when they need it. Custom report building is, of course, something that a lot of people are looking for when they're looking for LMSs, and this is a significant feature that you need to ask for. So that'll allow for predefined rules and filters that you can use again and again without having to rebuild your custom report every time. the next thing I'd like to talk about is certification and assessments. So online training, just like face-to-face training, will need to have an assessment element to prove knowledge retention and also competency. So an LMS should have an inbuilt assessment engine. You can build assessments outside the LMS and import them, but it's great if you can build them inside the LMS. And the kind of question types you need to make sure you have, of course, are things like multiple choice, true and false, fill in the gap, matching questions, ordering, so ordering processes, put this business process in a particular order. And then, of course, things like free text questions with full paragraph style answers. If you've got those, then you're probably okay. Those are kind of the ones that you'll need for most types of learning. And it's important that you look at that. And if you have a very specific need, perhaps another question type that you're looking for, then you need to make sure that it's going to be available. And if it's not available, you need to maybe consider, is that missing question type a deal breaker? So if the LMS is perfect for you in every other way, can you adjust your content to be quizzed in a different way? Of course, surveys are a very important part of an LMS in terms of interaction. So you might want to ask questions that don't have right or wrong answers, or get an idea of what people think of courses. So it'll survey at the end of a course, and you need to be able to have surveys that can be viewed as part of that. And then finally, you need to be able to look for an LMS that offers the ability to create customizable certificates that can be automatically issued. So when someone finishes a course, they receive their certificate straight away, and it could be branded for you. It could have a particular look and feel for a particular program. You need to be able to edit that and work with that, and it needs to be fully automated. The next thing we're going to talk about is blended learning. So support for blended learning. Okay, so what is blended learning? So it's traditionally defined as a combination of online and face-to-face training in a particular program, of course. So someone might do something online, and then they'll go and attend a face-to-face class. These days, I'd say it's possible to argue that blended training actually could mean online asynchronous training, so reading, running some tests, perhaps looking at some videos, coupled with live webinars, because a lot of face-to-face training has gone into webinar format. Either way, you do need to be sure that your LMS is going to allow you to do that. So you can define when a face-to-face or a webinar session is taking place, and then you can mark off attendance for that session after the event has taken place. And that'll allow you to track any type of internal and external training, be it online and run by your team, or offsite and run by a completely external team. So on the next slide, we're going to look at integration. So in a recent study, you can see on the slide by Brandon Hall, we've got 75% of respondents expressing an interest in integration when they're choosing an LMS. So many LMSs will have pre-existing integrations that have been built that are just plug and play. So that'll be between particular HR systems, perhaps, and your learning management system. And the reason why that's important is you need to ensure that users, when created on the HR system, for example, or the CRM system, are created on your learning management system with the same information. When that information is updated in one place, it's updated in the other place, rather than having two systems with different sets of data. You also need to be able to ensure that access to your learning management system is quick and easy. And in terms of integration, you need to consider things like single sign-on. So that's where there's a simple login for all your systems. So you might have someone who logs into your other system, and then they're automatically logged into the learning management system. So they're not having to remember multiple passwords. And then, of course, webinar tools. I mentioned webinar tools previously, and this is a very important integration to consider, because you can have a learning management systems that integrate with things like Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, and you need to make sure that the site you choose supports that chosen platform. And if there aren't existing integrations, it's important to make sure that the learning management system you choose has an API, so that's Application Program Interface, API codes to allow some custom building of integrations. So if there's not an existing integration, it must be easy to build what you need. So moving on to the next slide, ultimately, your LMS is there to facilitate learning. So how are you going to make sure that the learning experience is engaging? How are you going to make sure that good training habits are followed and people actually want to log in and do their training? So the first thing we're going to look at in terms of engagement refers to ease of use. So of course, if your LMS is not easy to use, then your users are not going to make use of it. So if login is difficult, they're not going to log in. Courses need to be easy to find, whether they are compulsory or optional. And end users need to be able to check their progress and make use of communication tools within the system easily. On the other side, of course, you need to consider the administrators of the learning management system. So your admin team need to be able to engage in user administration and course creation and all that kind of stuff without needing to sit in multi-day training courses on how to use the LMS. If it's hard to administer, it's going to be very difficult for you to onboard, for example, new L&D or HR users who might need to use the system. And as time goes by, knowledge of the system could drop off. So that's why it's important that it's an easy system, not only for your users, but also for your admin team. And then in addition, your admin team should be able to access good searchable documentation on the site. So a knowledge base where they can refresh their knowledge on the platform at any time of day. And then they can check, okay, there's a new feature, how does that work? Here's an article. So stuff like that is very important to consider because you need to be sure that as time goes by, knowledge of the site is maintained. Then the next slide, we're going to talk about how to engage the learners further. So an easy to use LMS doesn't automatically mean that there's going to be good user engagement. So there's another number of other features that you need to ask for, which will be supporting engaging training. So the first thing that I find very important is gamification. So that's the allocation of points and levels and badges based on activity on the site. One thing you need to check is that whether or not this is out of the box in your LMS or if it comes as an add-on. And if you want to make use of it, then you need to make sure it's available. Another thing you need to consider is communication tools. So typically you should be looking for an LMS that has an on-system messaging service, which is both for the end users to ask for help or maybe engage with instructors, but also for the admin team to be able to message larger groups of people who are doing training on the site. Another thing that would be that is very important to have on your site is discussion forums, so that you can have some more peer-to-peer discussion around your training topics. Then you need to have an LMS that supports multiple languages. Because it's great. It's great to have a number of languages, but it also needs to be easy for people to choose the language that they want. It shouldn't be predefined that the system is going to be in a single language. You need a system that will offer multiple languages. Then mobile capabilities, I've mentioned those before. They're very important to remember because it allows training to happen anywhere. And then there is accessibility requirements. So you just need to establish whether or not the LMS will comply with the accessibility requirements that you have. Finally, you need to be able to create learning paths and journeys for your users. So if there's a multi-step training program, it needs to be easy for people to understand, where do I go to next? How does this tie to the previous item? And what am I expected to do next? That all needs to be clear and simple on the site and available. So on the next slide, we've got some stats from Software Advisor's recent survey. So there's 3 key trends in terms of feature requests that have been identified. So the first one, you'll see 58% of the respondents indicating that micro-learning support is important to them. So allowing bite-sized, just-in-time training rather than only longer programs on their learning management system. We've got 35% of the respondents indicating that they want gamification, and then to add to that, rewards linked to learning and gamification being, and that's another priority that they have. Then 24% of the respondents indicated that they were looking for discussion boards and networking tools inside the LMS for a more social, social networking, social learning kind of environment. So, of course, your priorities might be slightly different. You might not be interested in one or all of these options, but it's a good idea to keep abreast of these trends. And either way, you do need to identify your priorities in choosing an LMS and ensure that you can support that.
Kate, I'll make you a presenter.
Yes. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you an example of a site that encapsulates some of the things we've talked about today. So here we go. Great. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. Thomas, just tell me if you can't see it. So we can see here, this is a simple example of a sort of simple site that's quick and easy to use. This particular learning management system is called Talent LMS. And some of you may have come across Talent LMS before. It's a leader in terms of ease of use. So I think you'll find it quite interesting. So firstly, I'll come back to the gamification because we were just there. You can see here, gamification is sort of front and center, and it pretty much appears on every page of the site. So as someone is doing learning, as they're logging in, as they are completing courses and passing tests, they're collecting points, levels, and badges. And you can see here they're also being given an idea of how to collect more points. So if they are keen to do more training and they want to know what that's going to get them, then they do have that information at their fingertips. And then the discussion boards, which was also something that we just spoke about. Discussion forums. Here, for example, we have them available here on the front page. They can, of course, also be put inside a course or linked to inside a course. But you can see here a very simple discussion where someone can pose a question and then a discussion can continue afterwards. People can upvote some answers that they like and they can reply to them. So something that's simple and easy to use. They have the ability even to select attachments. So if they want to share something that's in attachment format, they have that option as well. And this is a very key engagement tool on the system. Then in terms of communication, I did mention before that we have things like an on-system messaging system. And this is an example of that, where someone can send a message or receive messages on the system, which will of course be pushed to their email as well, so that they're aware when there is communication that they need to view. But this is all sort of periphery. Of course, when someone is logging into a site, you want to be sure that they can find their training. So you can see here, for example, here are a couple of courses that this person has been allocated. Perhaps this is mandatory training, or perhaps it's training that they've signed up for previously. And there's a very clear idea as to what's happening here. You can see this one is completed and this one needs to be started. It's got an expiry date. And instead of going off somewhere else to search for these courses, they're right here on the front page. Someone might come in to start the course, and you can see here, it's very easy to navigate through this course. So they could click start and that will take them into the first item. And the idea here is, you can see in this particular course, we've got a sort of range of content types. There's a few different icons here. So we've got some text, we've got a presentation or a presentation document that someone has to read through, a couple of types of videos, these two items are SCORM courses and even engagement sessions. So this is a webinar that someone could attend. Click on that and get the information, join the webinar. Quizzes, of course. In this case, it might just be a formative quiz, so it's a little bit more informal and a lot of feedback is given. Or assignments, where people can submit assignments which are then marked by an instructor once they've been submitted, and then with a whole workflow behind that. And of course, as with any good course, there is a survey to close up to get an idea of what people thought of the course as they went through it. But that's great. So maybe this is some mandatory training that's been allocated to the person, but perhaps you want to encourage people to go and look for some optional training. There is a great course catalog here where someone can search through, get some information about courses, so they can click on an item to read a bit more about it, provided that a good description has been given, and they can also then obtain the courses if they are open for allocation. So let's just say I've been looking for some ethics training. I'm really keen to do that, so I can sign up for that and click on it and get started straight away. Start the course straight from here. Or if I'm not ready to do that yet, I can go home and you can see now that course is appearing on my home page. So really quick, really easy. People can get what they want when they need it. Just one last thing I'd like to show you before we move on to Q&A and further discussion, because I know Thomas has some more things he would like to share with you after this, is progress and certification. So you'll see here the end user has their own progress dashboard with a lot of information on it. This is the kind of thing you should be looking for. They have information about what courses they've got, what courses they've done. If they've done any tests or any SCORM items, there'll be reports on what they've done and if they've got a particular score for that. And certifications, you'll remember I mentioned that. Just going to move the dashboard for GoToMeeting was just in front of my download link. So if we download that certification, we end up with something that's got that person's name, the name of the course that they finished, when they finished it. In this case, a very simple one. I've branded it for Together in this case, but it could look like absolutely anything, and you could put the information absolutely anywhere on the screen. So really easy progress tracking with the touch of a button. And of course, with the amount of information that you see here from a learner perspective, you can imagine that the reports from an administrator's perspective are, of course, very detailed. So that's everything I was planning to show, Thomas, so you can take control again.
Thank you, Kate. That was very comprehensive, and we'll hear from Kate again shortly. I just wanted to very briefly talk about the role of a partner in choosing your LMS and managing and maintaining the content. So hopefully, I think you've picked up from the conversations that the information that Kate's gone through, that choosing your learning management system is part of the process. You want to be looking at the features and functionality that are important to you, but effectively the content is the big elephant in the room. And working with partners, besides understanding best practice, they also can work with you to articulate what your pain points are, help you to put together a business strategy. What is the return on investment effectively? Put that business case forward to the stakeholders so that you can get the necessary sign-off, and then work with you to select the learning management system that would suit your pocket and suit your needs. I mean, I heard just the other day that there were well over 1,000 learning management systems out there to choose from, so a real minefield. Then it's the working with a consultant to effectively set up your learning management system to meet your requirements. And that can be branding the system to meet your needs. It's the training of the end users, both the administrators and the users of the system. Hopefully the system is relatively straightforward, and so there's not a lot of training that needs to happen. But I think the big thing is sourcing your content and setting that content up in learning paths, for instance, or in groups. There is, in some cases, some businesses want to sell on their content as well. So setting up the e-commerce side of the learning management system. And then maintaining, customizing those courses, adapting them as things change, legislation changes, and the like, making sure that reports are run to ensure that learners who need to be accredited or certified and certifications run out, that those are adhered to. That's the benefit of working with a partner. And we're more than happy to have conversations, to understand your needs, and to discuss whether it's suitable or not to work with a partner. So we're coming to the end of the webinar, and we thought we'd run another poll, please, Adrian. And this poll is a short question revolving around your experience of the webinar. So having attended this webinar is the question: what area of expertise would best support your current needs? Adrian?
Yeah, we are polling. We are polling.
Thank you. Right. Countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Okay.
Because in the interest of time, I'll just move on to our second but last slide. And in summary, hopefully from today, you would have got a good understanding or an initial appreciation of the features and functionality that a good learning management system would afford you. I'll give you one example. We've got clients that multiple language is not a requirement, and then we've got the flip side where multiple language is a requirement. And the big question there is, with a shopping list of features and functionality to address the particular needs and pain points that your organization has, are they a mandatory requirement, or is it something that is a nice to have? And those are really good starting points. And Kate made a good point about future-proofing the system. We've got a particular opportunity at the moment where e-commerce is on the list. They don't envisage implementing it straight away, but there is a long-term vision to actually sell on their content. And this is a group, a charity with care homes and schools as a matter of interest. Obviously, taking into account the user's experience, Kate took you through 2 areas in terms of what to look for, and there we talked about the administrators' requirements as well as the actual end users' requirements. On the back of today's webinar, we are going to send you a complimentary PDF document that'll talk you through the key areas of selecting a learning management system. I think you can appreciate that an hour isn't long enough to go through everything, so we thought we'd make it easier and to send you this document in the post, effectively. That is everything from Kate and myself. First of all, thank you, Adrian, for hosting us and for so effectively managing things in the background.
Yeah, well, like a good LMS system, it should just run very smooth, should not have any issues. So I'm pleased to say that, yeah, no, the webinars tend to run perfectly smooth on that. So we'll see if we get any questions coming through, Thomas, just to finish off, and Kate. And we'll just see, I don't know if Kate can turn on her webcam now we've finished, there we are, brilliant. So yeah, I just had a couple of things that so we've obviously, as you saw at the start, we have our academy, so we've produced some content, not really as a sort of, as a key revenue stream for the business, just really as something that we're thinking can add some value. But So we're very focused, and I think it's probably similar to internal stuff where it's got to be a slick process. In fact, so much that we're actually changing LMS provider now, because the first one, the main issue was, I think we looked at the features from our side and thought, oh, this is great for us. But then when it comes to the users were struggling to just even get their password reset, emails, and the journey for the user it's a bit confusing. So I don't know whether that's something that you wanted to talk about. I don't know how people would test that out to ensure that, you know, it is a simple process for users. As soon as you've got so many employees, as soon as, you know, 5% have an issue accessing it, then that becomes quite a big issue for you.
Without a doubt. Kate, if I start and if you've got anything to add. Adrian, there are options like a free trial. The free trial could include a couple of courses as well. And I would take yourself through that experience, you know, that shopping list of, well, as an administrator, I need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And so we've got clients, for instance, that they've chosen a learning management system on the basis that the provider has all of the courses that they need. Once they started using the learning management system, they recognized that they can't set up effective learning paths. Development needs can't be imported into the system and attributed to learners. The certifications that run out after, for argument's sake, a year can't automatically be assigned to the learners so that the course is rerun again. And the list goes on. You know, they don't have e-commerce, so they chose the system not thinking of their requirements up front. So my recommendation is, you know, work with consultants like ourselves. We can help you understand your requirements. You can then go out and look to see whether those systems actually meet those requirements. And I would strongly recommend that you work with, and this would be your case, in your case, this would be relevant, you know, work with a learning management system and not with a content provider who has a learning management system. Kate, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, just another thing in terms of the sort of buying cycle of a learning management system is it's always useful to have one or two people who are a bit distant, who are distanced from the project, who you can say, okay, here's some login details, log in as a user and tell us what you think, basically, you know, run one of these demo courses, and tell us what you think, because it's all about testing, and as you know, as you said, you can test everything you like on the admin side, but if your end users can't use it, then you have to look for something else.
And it's interesting you said about sort of growing with you as well, Thomas, as well, and trying to get the idea, your heads around where it could go in the future. Because I guess a lot of people start out thinking, we need this solution. So they're building the training for, let's say, their care home, like you mentioned. Then actually, once they put the effort in, and I've built courses, there's a big effort in building the content if you're building it yourself. Once you've done that, then it is a resource, isn't it? It is an asset. You want to try and, you know, if you can get it out there and it can be an additional revenue stream, then great. But I suppose you need to think around, you need to ask yourself, if we did that, how would we price it? How would we sell it? Once again, so it's low effort. It's, you know, you're not having to turn yourself into sort of a training administration company. It's completely managed for you, I guess.
Without a doubt. And the learning management system typically isn't the biggest cost in your digital learning journey. The content is.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I dramatically underestimated how much time it would take to produce the courses that I produced. And they're relatively straightforward courses. So yeah, and obviously, you know, I recorded them just sat here in this very room. So there wasn't like a huge production cost to them. And actually, there doesn't have to be. It's just slides with me inserted and you can deliver that training. So I don't know what you think around, yeah, if you're producing your own content, I don't know what guidance you give to people in regards to how much. There's probably just, I guess, a few simple things they could sort of undergo, like good lighting, good sound, that sort of stuff. There's a room directly beneath me here, but there's a set of stairs as well. So if I record in that room and someone goes up the stairs, it's quite loud. So it's just little things like that. But I don't know whether that's something you come across as well, where customers are struggling to have the confidence to produce their own content as well, I guess, sometimes.
Kate, can I defer to your expertise on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the thing that we often find talking to clients is that the idea is just to start small, provided that works to your context. You know, sometimes when you're doing external training, there is a limit as to how simple you can go with your content. But I mean, we've got a small you know, I've dealt with sort of small retail businesses who, you know, she started with SOP documents with really good quizzes, and now she's over time built herself up to, you know, building animated sort of power tunes and things like that to really support that. And the great thing is it's all about actually just keeping it simple. A good microphone or headset is always good, but the great thing about now is you don't need a massive recording studio to achieve that. And as long as, you know, when you're using sound, as you said, as long as the sound is clear and there's not too much background noise, that's usually enough. And yeah, and even things as simple as, you know, recording PowerPoints and recording voiceover and timing on that, you can do great stuff with that. So it really is a case of starting small and building, and where you know, recognize your limits, then, you know, maybe get a little bit of a helping hand.
Yeah. Now, let me know if I'm going off on the wrong, you know, on a real bizarre thing. But from a legal perspective as well, I presume you need to ensure that this is your content. So if you are asking for someone to come in and do a bit of work with you, you know, if it's your content you're going to be using, you want to make sure that's all signed off as well, particularly if you plan to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. That needs to be as part of the arrangement. You know, they're essentially providing a service to you, but it is your content that you are paying for ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's pretty much the only. I mean, you know, we didn't have any other questions from anyone else. I can see we had a really good attendance rate for this. It's quite a specific subject. We didn't have a huge sign up. We've got a really good attendance rate for this, and I can see virtually everyone stayed till the end as well, which is a real good. I take that as a really good sign. But as we're finishing now, there is a quick survey, guys. You'll be asked at the end if you want to rate the webinar from 1 to 10. If you can add a comment, and we share all that with Thomas and Kate. And other than that, you know, just feel free to reach out. I think it's great. You're gonna send across that document as well about choosing an LMS, and hopefully people will want to reach out to you and sort of carry on the conversation, guys.
Okay, thank you very much as well from my side. Adrian, thanks again for hosting us, and thank you everybody for attending, and do feel free to reach out as Adrian had suggested. We'd love to continue the conversation offline. Have a good day.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.